Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Okay, today I'm going to answer a question. The question is, how do you prove that your theory? In other words, the question is like this. If you say everything is an instance of something, how can you prove it? Well, it's a legitimate question, but I have to specify or answer a pre-assumed question first. That is, how do we believe that the concept of proof, where does it come from? You may notice when we in daily life, when you make a statement, you may ask to prove, right? And for example, if you are saying I'm sick, so I couldn't come to work, your boss might want you to prove it. All right, you can show a doctor's note, or you can call a family member to let your boss know, and you can let your friend to tell your boss what happened to you. Okay, that kind of proof. In another area is science. In science, we say you have to prove it, right? You give assumption, you make a generalization, general statement, then you have to prove it, and you have to repeat it also. Otherwise, it cannot be called science. So those are things are the examples of proving. So in philosophy, you may say, well, philosophers always make statements. How can they prove they are true? Well, here's the thing. Philosophy as itself, per se, it's a pretty high-level field. It normally won't make any specific or daily, how can I say that? Very detailed proposition, like I gave the examples before. But philosophy is something, if it's a true philosophical statement, it must be well thought of, and according to the philosopher's understanding, it normally has some roots in the past, in the history, or extension of some previous sayings, all the possibilities. Out of philosophy, science comes into being. So science, daily living, daily events are subject to proof. Very, very restricted in that sense. They are very restricted. You have to give proof. But the philosophy is different because it's a higher level field or area or subject, whatever you call it. So it normally does not need to go to this category of proving or concept of proving. Okay, let's come back to my topic on the instance. To prove that everything is the instance, as I said, it's not necessary. But what a philosopher need to do is trying to specify. In addition to the general statements, you have to make specific, or if you can, you specify what condition it's more suited or adequate if you can. But that's just a minor part. Okay. As far as the instantology is related, when I say everything's an example or instance of something else, by that I mean it's a realization of a blueprint. Let me give you an example. Let's say a car engineer once has a thought. He's going to build a car. And he thought about that for many days. And he draws a blueprint. Later on, all other cars are made according to the blueprint. So each car, every one of them is an instance of the blueprint. There's many other things you can imagine. Let's say a house, right? You have a blueprint and then build according to it. Like manufacturing, you have a design first according to design patterns or blueprints, if you like. And every product is made according to the blueprints. So, in that sense, when I say instantology, the study of instances, I mean there's a blueprint for everything we see, we feel, we are aware of. Let's say the tree in front of me, the window in front of me, the cloud in front of me, everything has a blueprint. As what it is, that's a task of the science. It's not a philosopher to specify. You may say, is that the DNA or RNA? Is that the is that like atom or electron or proton or neutron or quark? Whatever it is, as soon as you can identify it, as soon as you can name it, it's an example of the blueprints. That's my understanding. I hope this will be clear to you. All right? In other words, I'm saying you can make or things can evolve in nature, in space and time, but the origin of everything we can see or we feel or we can identify is an example of that blueprint, no matter what it is. We know the chain of things happening in our daily life. Yeah, right? We have life. We have molecules collection of molecules. We have all the chemical on that level, the congregation of atoms. We have acid, we have base, which have hydrogen, we have helium, and we go into it, we have atom, we have electrons, and if you go deeper into the center, the nucleus, and we have proton, we have a neutron, we have a neutron, we have a quark. We can even go further. But I think there's an end, no matter what. You cannot, at that level, you cannot identify anything else. So the point is here. The cutoff is here. When you cannot identify, it's no longer an instance. That's what I'm saying. As soon as you can identify, that is based on the blueprint. The identifiable thing is called instance. Everything in this world is an example or instance of that blueprint. Okay, I hope that will be clear to you. All right, then I want to answer another question. Why do you say that a human being is not an instance, but everything else is instance? Well, the thinking is like this. Human being is everything else the same as all other things. Like, let me say, their flesh is no different than the structure of any other animals. Their organs are no different. Most of them, 99%, are the same as any other animals. And on an even more basic level, let's say elements are more or less the same. Proteins, molecules, DNA, RNA, things like that. All right? But only one thing in humans which is different than all the rest of everything in the world. That is your brain. The function of that brain. Rather, because the brain has no limit, has no defined cut-off point that you cannot step out of it. No. So in that sense, the brain is part of the fundamental. I'm hesitant to say that's a thing, but I cannot say anything else except using this word thing. I call it double absolute. Absolutely absolute. Because it's not something, it's not even negative. It's not zero, it's not something. No matter what you say, it's beyond it. It's a background. That part is the fundamental of each individual. And the surrounding the part of that is material things, or defined things, or relative things. Only that part of brain, or rather the brain is limitless. That's not relative anymore. But it will all stay stay alive only inside the relative, that is your organs, your flesh, your bones, your nerves, your blood, your cells, your organs, everything else needed in this nature of the world. So if you think yourself is example or instance of something else, that's not true, because you are part of the absolutely absolute. You are not an example of it. No, you are not. That's why you are not perfect. But the absolutely absolute is not perfect, completely perfect, or even not perfect. You cannot just say it. Only for the sake of expression, you have to use it. Use the word to say it. Even the word absolutely absolute is just to borrow the meaning of a language because of the limitation of expression. You have to use something to tell others or to show, to expose the truth. You have to use the language. But the language itself is restriction. That's very clear. I don't know if I have made this point clear. But anyway, if you have questions, we can keep discussing. The truth, the ideas is not the same, in psychology as Plato's. Plato once mentioned for everything in the world, there's a pattern. His example is the blueness of the sky is the blueness of your clothes. He is saying there's a pattern called blue. Well, he didn't elaborate much, but basically he's regarding the property of the color as the essence of things. And nowadays, after 2,500 years, we know that the color is just a length of the spectrum or length of the waves that's reflected or identified by our retina, I believe that's the name of it, or retina of our eyes. And we know it's blue. Probably, let's say, if an ant or any other bugs, they won't see it as this color of the blue when they look at the sky, because they have different eye structure or wavelength, but we don't know. And you have to ask a biology for that matter. So the idea of instance is basically expansion or much more extended concept of the pattern raised by Plato. Or you may say it's the inheritance of the Plato's idea. But more, it's wider, it's covered more area than just a property. Because we come to the root of things. And in psychology, two specific worlds are mentioned. That is micro world and the macro world. All right? And if you are interested, you can study more about it and to understand it, hopefully. All right. I think today I'll stop here. All right. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.